I just went to unmute the stuff. Ah, Morning, friends. Is Arvind here? I'll just connect the.
Very good morning, sir. Welcome, sir.
So, do we start? I'm a bit delayed because of the power cut out here. Shall we start? Shall we start, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll start, sir. This is Srinivas, Professor Srinivas. So, welcome all. I like to say my apologies for a small technical issue to start. It made us 12 minutes delay of this session. I welcome all the people. Oh, and today our special guest, Mr. Aravind, and also Mr. Rajan, who's from NSE side. So I just want to give a brief introduction about Mr. Aravind. Is such a wonderful person who has more than 2 decades of work experience, especially in stock market and banking. So his corporate experience includes working with MCX, multi-commodity exchange, stock exchange especially, as a vice president for regional south, and he's been serving before that with bankers. So MNC and Indian banks and all, he has been served. So and now he's running a consultancy, Sinus Consultancy, who's giving a corporate a consultancy for finance and risk management part in the area of foreign exchange, interest rate, commodity price, and all. So welcome you, sir. I also welcome Rajan. Welcome, Rajan.
Sir. Yeah, thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We'll start.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
We'll start.
Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind introduction. Rajan, sir, morning. Morning, friends. So I am a bit delayed because of the technical glitch here and the intermittent power cuts. So to compensate, I'll try to go a bit faster. Anyhow, we have a Q&A session, so in case if you miss out some of the important aspects, then we can always touch base again in the Q&A session. What I intend to do today is just want to touch upon select topics, 3-4 topics which are slightly new to the industry. So these are the things. Basics and all, I think you will be knowing about the basics of stock market and all, so I will not get into that. So there are a few products that are available, something like securities, borrowing and lending. What is hedge fund? What is alternate investment fund? And algorithmic trading, high frequency trading, and what are the latest developments that is happening in the stock exchange platform. So these are some of the aspects that we'll be touching today. So we will get into the presentation. So basically, the purpose of e-earning is just to take care of our livelihood, and these are all the 8 objectives for which we are running. First, like that Maslow's theory of hierarchy. We have the basic needs and the protection. Here I mean the insurance part. First and foremost that we need to do is the insurance part. Then we'll be taking care of our daily livelihood. Then the family commitments like education, marriage of the kids and all. Then we will have some fund, emergency fund of say around 6 months of funds to meet out some contingencies like what we are facing today. Then children's commitment, and then for better standard of living, then for wealth creation and retirement planning. So many, generally this is something which we generally forget. We'll be so busy that we don't plan this part, the retirement planning part. So why I'm putting this as a first slide is like, since you guys are the college very youngsters, so you should start planning right from the day one when you get employed. First thing is you have to take your term insurance, medical insurance, and start saving right from the day one. Okay, then only you will have a peaceful retirement life. Okay, so for the purpose of this thing, wealth accumulation, for asset accumulation, you have 2 types of assets. One is the physical asset and the financial asset. Gold, property and all coming at the physical, and shares, the markets is the financial assets. The advantage of financial assets, as you know, is like, it is easily transferable. It is highly liquid, like shares and all are liquid. That too, if they are blue chip Large cap companies, it is very easily to sell through and convert it into money. So financial assets are relatively, very easy for us to liquidate and convert it into money in case of any emergencies. So that way, shares are, shares also very important asset class that you need to look at. Since you are at a very young age, for you to plan for your remainder of your life, equity market can be considered as one of the good markets for investing. So the financial assets are like shares, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and all. And the mode of growth, how we can do it, you can have your own you can start trading on your own, open an account, and you can start accumulating these assets, or you can give to professionally managed organizations like portfolio management services. They are SEBI registered entities. They will take the funds from the customers and they will be doing the ensuring that the capital is appreciating, and they will take a small fee income for that, and other revenue is also generating for managing the asset management. They take some asset management this thing also as a fees also. And then comes AIF. AIF is a what to say? It is a SEBI registered hedge fund sort of a facility. We'll touch upon this after some time. So this is how we can grow your wealth. Either you can do it on your own, or you can make it professionally driven by either mutual funds or PMS or through AIF. So what are the risks involved? So there are two types of things. We have a short-term horizon and a long-term horizon. When it comes to short-term, that is, for meeting out your immediate requirements. So there, for short-term, the risk that you see is the price volatility. Okay, so whenever you are investing for a short-term, we have to ensure that the price volatility is being taken care of. In case if you are looking for a long-term is say like mid-term is say between 1 to 5 years, and for long-term it is more than 5 years. So that being the case, then you have to look for beating the inflation. That should be your objective. So you should be able to cover the risk-free rate of return over and above that, or along with that, you have to take care of the inflation also. Let's say I have a return of around 6% or 7% from the bank FD, and the inflation is going to be 7%, then it is more or less equal to 0. So that way, when it comes to long-term investment, you have to ensure that the inflation part is being taken care. And in case of products like bonds, corporate bonds, then the downgrade risk and bankruptcy risks are also there. So these are the two things which you need to take care. So in case of the inference, what's inference? If you're looking for a short-term horizon, just avoid volatile stocks and go for fixed income products. In case if you have a long-term this thing, then go for instruments like shares and market-related investments, equity market-related investments, so that your capital is growing. So ideal situation, this again is a very important thing. For investment, please use only the surplus funds. So, okay. So our objective is first to cover that insurance, all those things has to be covered, emergency funds, then only we should come to the markets for investing. So before not just doing a random investment, please do a goal setting for yourself. Then do your cash flow analysis, for the next 10 years, do a proper pakka financial planning. You can do it on your own, or you can hire professionals who can do it for you for a fees. They are SEBI registered people are there, they can do it for you. And then understand the markets before even you invest in it. That is a very important thing. So the general thing what we see in our life is like we will have our expenses, income minus expenses, and then if at all something is there, we put it as savings. That shouldn't be the case. Savings, then expenses. That has to be first comes savings, then comes expenses, then only is a surplus. So this is something which I want to touch upon, very basic thing. Okay. So please have it in mind, this formula, very important in our life. Okay. Now coming back to the risk appetite. The risk appetite is, and at an individual level, it depends on the age group that you belong to, the present savings level that we have already, the either a legacy savings or your accumulated accruals over the years, and the present and the future earnings level that you are anticipating, your career growth or your business growth, the nature of business or occupation that you're in, and the goals that you want to accomplish. We talked about goal-based investing, wherein my say, for example, your son will be going to college in another, say, 20 years or 22 years, and he is going to US or some other country for studies. So for that, you may require certain amount of money in today's value. Say, for example, if you take my case, if I'm going to retire by the age of 60, and assume that 40,000 rupees is my present requirement for leading a life, then for me to retire and live a happy life, I should have a corpus of around 3 crore when I retire in another 15 years, so that for the remaining part of the life, I'll be getting 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees equivalent at that point of time. So that way, you have to have your goals fixed, and the cash flows has to be coming along with you all along your lifetime. So that is the reason this equity market is very, very important for us. If you look at inflation is the biggest enemy, and it's just a data. If an item was able in 1961, if you're able to buy an item, rupee value, if it is 100 paisa, it is now only just 1.32 paisa. That is how inflation has eaten the money over the period of time. And the second graph, which talks about is the savings level in Indian market. The gross saving levels are slowly coming down. This is talking about retail saving levels. So this is not a very good sign, because slowly we are also moving towards the Western style. So we should try to have our savings intact. The graph should ideally go up. And this is another way I'm showing this graph is like I'm talking about the potential for equity market. This is one graph wherein this India is this orange color. So this is the middle-age group consumption. So the middle-age group consumption right now is around 5%. So this will go to more than 30% bandwidth over the years. So, and we know the demography is also more skewed to the youth population. So we have a long way to go. The life expectancies are very high. So you need to have good savings for us to have a better quality life as we age, grow older. So for that, equity markets are very, very important. And if you look at the GDP, Indian GDP, it's 220.5 trillion rupees. And the percentage, the previous graph was talking about 30.1% as the percentage of GDP savings. If you have to convert it into rupee term, that comes to 66.37 lakh crore rupees. So that is a saving, the household saving that we are talking about. Okay, if in this 66.37 lakh crore rupees, if you are able to just divert 10% of the savings into capital market, like by investing into the shares of companies, good companies, value companies, then this will be adding in around 6.64 lakh crores of market capital. So that is something which we need to look at. The awareness has to be created, and we all should move towards that. So this is a per capita market cap. This was a population as of yesterday when I was preparing the slide, 137 crore, and this is the per capita market cap. So this has to go up. Okay. Now, avenues for making money, these are all in the stock markets. We can invest in shares, as we saw, short term, mid term, long term, and we can do intraday trading of shares. This is advisable for only people who are well entrenched into the market of understanding the dynamics of the market. The next level is short selling of shares. We will come to that subsequently at a later point of time. We can do this securities borrowing and lending. This is what we are going to discuss today, one of the products. And there are also exchange traded funds, mutual funds, SIPs is there. And of late, for the past 2 years at least, the bond markets have opened up. We can invest in bonds, we can invest in debentures. Okay, and bonds per se, I would like to make it clear, like there are two types of bonds. One is a corporate bond and the retail bond. Corporate bond and the government bonds, GSECs. So GSECs is relatively safer. So if at all you plan for investing, it is better to invest in government securities, the 10-year government securities, and securities which are less than 1 year securities are also available. You can invest in those bonds. Then buying and investing in IPOs, FPOs, and rights issues, participating in rights issues. These are the ways in which you can directly participate in the market at the secondary level. Then, for meeting out the risk, for mitigating the risk of the underlying transactions, you can use the derivatives like futures and options also. So you can use futures contract and options contract for hedging. And you can also make money by doing arbitrage trade. Arbitrage trade is nothing but trying to buy and sell between two platforms. It can be between spot market and futures market, or it can be between BSE and NSE, wherein if there is a 50 paisa difference between two company shares. Company A is trading at 100 rupees here and 100 rupees 10 paisa there. Then there are people, brokers, who are having huge arbitrage desk. They will be buying some 10,000 shares here and selling 10,000 shares there, and they will be able to take the arbitrage benefit. So arbitrage is also another way of making money, and trading and hedging using options is another important, major way in which people are making money. We will see those things subsequently. And the stock exchanges, we have not just equity market, we have equity, commodity, currency, debt, all are now coming under one umbrella. Now we have the concept of universal stock exchange, wherein one exchange will provide all the products. So that way, this helps for planning your portfolio and doing a proper asset allocation across these asset classes. And you can also do passive investments through the professional bodies that we already see. So these are all the asset classes. In the equity market, we have shares. That is a cash market. We have F&O in shares, and we have F&O in index. Index is like, you have Nifty. So we have Nifty futures and Nifty options. Same way, we have commodities. Commodities, we have these commodities: bullion, base metal, energy, agri, etc. So we have futures contract as well as options contract in that. In a currency market, we have futures and options available in these 4 currency pairs: dollar, euro, pound, and yen, Japanese yen. And debt market, here I'm mentioning only the retail part. I'm not talking about the corporate debt market, corporate segment. Just institutional is not here. I'm talking generally from the retail point of view. You can invest in government securities and in corporate bonds if at all you have the risk appetite. NCDs, debentures are all there. So these are all the various asset classes. Okay, how do I trade in this market? Let's say just a very, very basic example. Let's say the price of the share is 100 rupees right now, and I am of the view that the price is going to go up. It is going to 110 rupees. So the profit that I'm making is 10 rupees. So assuming that brokerage and other charge is 1 rupee, so the net profit that I make is 9 rupees. Okay, at a gross level, I have invested 100 rupees and I make a profit of 10 rupees, so I make a 10% return. So this is a normal trade, normal buy-sell deal that we do. So this is how we buy shares also. You can buy even one single share and sell, buy, sell, and you can make the profit. Now comes to the leverage products. This is a cash market. Okay, assume that the price of the item is 50 rupees and you have some 10,000 rupees in your hand. And for, as we saw in cash market, you have to pay 100% margin and you have to trade. So the cost of buying one item is 50. So with this 10,000 rupees, you'll be able to buy 200 units. And assume that the price has moved from 50 rupees to 51 rupees. The profit that you make is 1 rupee. So for 200 units, you make a 2% profit. Okay. So on the investment of 10,000, you get a 2% profit. Now coming to the derivatives products, you have the futures and options. Assuming that, let's say in case of currency derivatives, the margin requirement is only 3%. So 10,000 rupees, 3%, just 1 rupee 50 paisa is enough to buy 1 unit of this particular item. So with this, you'll be able to buy 6,667 units. And assuming 1 rupee movement, you make 6,667 rupees profit. That is a 67% returns. Now come to options. In case of options, options is a very beautiful product wherein you can even trade with 1 paisa, 2 paisa also. There are out of the money options which are available in currency, and in case of in equity, in Nifty and all, very, very low price, few rupees also per unit, you have options available. So depending on our affordability and our view, we can trade. Assuming that 0.5% is only required, then you can see that you get 100% return. So this is a concept of leverage you're talking about. In case of cash market, what we do is just buying and selling, and you just pocket the profit. But when you come to futures and options, what you get is multiple exposure, that is leverage. So leverage is something which is a beautiful thing. At the same time, it is a risky thing also. Either you will have unlimited profit, or it may take you to deeper losses also. So that I'm not going to touch upon derivatives today, because I told we can have it subsequently. So I'm not going to touch upon derivatives today. So factors affecting the share prices, this and all we know, basic common sense. So I'm not going to stress upon this. Basically the demand for the stock, how that particular industry is performing, then how that particular company is performing within that industry, and news, any particular news about that particular company, their financial performances, the quarter-on-quarter results which they are filing with the stock exchange. How is the market's perception about this particular company? Any changes in the economic policies in the country, which may affect positively or negatively that particular industry. Then any corporate actions announcements, right from the normal dividend announcement to a mergers and acquisition or restructuring or a bonus issue, whatever various corporate actions are there. So those announcements and changes in management or shareholding pattern, any new products or expansion that they're going to do. These are all the factors that will affect the share price, a particular share price. Okay, this is at a micro level. When it comes to overall as equity market, this thing, see on each and everything we can talk for 5 minutes, but we don't have time. So I'll be just rushing through. You can just revisit this thing if at all you feel it is required. So interest rates, very important thing. Like say for example, in India the interest rates are getting cut. USA also the interest rates are getting cut. So Indian rupee or Indian market is one of the markets for beautiful carry trade. Carry trade, what is carry trade? Here we have, let's assume we have a 6%, assuming 6% interest rate, and the US it is 1% interest rate. So the difference between these two markets is coming to 5%. What if we keep on cutting the repo rate? The difference of 5%, that the profit that they get for the investors who are coming into Indian market, that is slowly shrinking. So the carry trade opportunities are going. So when interest rates are getting reduced, people, there's FIIs and people who have invested into our Indian market, they will pull their money out and go back to their own country wherein they are getting, better returns. And that too, if they are coming to India, they have to hedge their exposures. So, and for hedging their exposures, that annualized expenses will be around 3-4%. If at all the gross return itself is only 4%, and the hedging cost itself is 4%, the net returns that they are going to get is only 0%, assumingly. So that won't be attractive for them. So they will pull the money out and go out of the markets. So interest rate is one of the important factors, not only in India, for any country. So interest rate is a very important factor. And inflows, these are interlinked points. Inflows from the FIs. And we have this various data releases like inflation data, unemployment data, industrial productivity data. A lot of data releases are coming. Whenever the data releases are positive, it will give a positive boost to the markets. When the data are negative, markets will try to react negatively. Then political stability. Any country requires a stable government to undergo all the reforms and the... Hello? So that's this political stability is very important aspect for a stable market or a growth market. And the fiscal situation of the country, like what we see right now, is like we have fiscal deficit widening and a lot of stress that is available. That is seen across all the countries. It is not specific to India. Across the globe, we are seeing the stress in the fiscal situations. So that is not a good sign. Then balance of payment, current account deficit, new policy announcements. That also impacts. Say something like, you have there's a slight market euphoria when you're talking about the insolvency proceedings and those related things for these near NPA companies and pay companies, that is getting slightly extended owing to this COVID thing. So that is giving some sort of a positive vibe, some sort of a relief thing for the industry. So likewise, any new policy announcement that comes in also gives a impact in the market. And performance of the emerging markets and the developed markets. So the general saying goes, if one country is catching cold, the other country will sneeze. So that is very much there because of the free movement of capital across the various countries. You can see that when the emerging markets and developed markets are going good, our markets also does well. Global economic condition, they are interlinked factors. How other asset classes are doing, like crude oil, gold, how they are doing. They may have a negative correlation many a times with the equity markets. The natural calamities were a good monsoon gives a good harvest, and since we are an agrarian country, it gives a good boost to the stock markets. And currency fluctuation, these equity market and currency markets are inversely correlated. So when rupee appreciates, you can see that the markets are coming down, and when markets are going up, you can see rupee appreciating. So they are negatively correlated. It is like the tail and dog story. That way that dog is wagging the tail or tail is wagging the dog. Both are equally powerful. So the currency is very powerful stuff. And systematic risk, in case something like what we saw during the ILFS days when markets started crashing because of the perceived systematic risk, then also this will have an impact on the equity markets. Okay, COVID-19, I think we'll not have time to discuss. I'll just 1 minute. I'll just say the interest rates are all falling, so bank deposits and people are going to get lower interest rates. So it is better to, rather than putting in FD, we should look for better asset classes like equity markets, which can give a better returns. While going in for investment, look for some of the industries which are least affected or going to have a positive impact. Something like your telecom industry, tech companies, even edutech is also doing well. A lot of people are having studies online. So edutech companies, pharma companies. So look for those sectors which can give more value to you. And there is a lot of shift is happening from China to countries like Vietnam and India. So there are some opportunities, of course, due to the cash flow strain which the corporates are going to face for the first quarter, second quarter. The results also will be declared poorly in the coming quarters. So this year, I think we can slightly pardon and leave it. So post 2020, we may have a better market situation. So these are all the various classifications of equity shares. I think due to paucity of time, probably if you have time, we will come again. So these are all the various types of shares. We have this blue chip companies, wherein they give a decent dividends and they give decent returns. We have the growth companies. So they are in the growing markets, and they are doing better than the other companies. And here we don't expect more of a dividend. We look for more of a appreciation in capital. Likewise, we have the various types of shares. So generally, of all these, either we can go for a growth company or a value share or a growth share. These are the two main things which you generally look at. Blue chip companies are stable ones. Okay, so either a value company, value share, or a growth share, or a blue chip share is what we generally look at. So this is a volume that happens in NSE. Yesterday's volume is around, in the cash market, that is buying and selling of shares, it is around 66,000 crores, yesterday's volume. And for F&O, it is around 17.25 lakh crore rupees. This is daily volume that is happening in NSE. This is as of yesterday closing. Okay, so and now see how much money is required for getting into this market. There is no such you need not be a millionaire to enter into the market. Even if you have a small amount, you can start entering. So you can even buy one share. You can buy 10 shares. There is no restrictions. In the cash market, you can buy as many as say 30 shares you are buying. You bought at 467 and this is actual real data, yesterday's data, and you exited. You made a profit of 690 rupees, and your investment was this much, return is this much. So you made a profit of 5%. I think this was in 3 hours time. Futures, this is on the cash market. Futures market, you have futures both in stock futures as well as in the index futures. So futures, the problem is the margin. In there, we call it as investment. When it comes to futures, we call it as margin. Margins are slightly high now since the volatility. Generally, equity markets volume margins are generally high. It's around 20% to 25%, 18 to 25%. So 1.48 lakhs is what I've invested, or 1.4 lakhs is what I've invested, and I make a profit of around 6,375 rupees. These are all live calls and live executed trades. I get around 4% returns. Now comes this fellow, options. As we saw, options are highly leveraged products, wherein you'll be able to leverage with a lesser money but get a better returns. You are invested 18,900 and you make a profit of 4,800, which is a sizable, decent chunk of profit. So this is how you can start investing into the market. You need not be a lakhpati. You need not invest in lakhs. You can just start even with the 100, 200 rupees also is enough to just start the business, how to learn it. Until otherwise you actually do the physical trade, enough amount of theory, it is no way going to help us. Okay, so so generally these are some of the aspects that you need to look at while doing this intraday trade. You need to trade only the highly liquid stocks. You need to be very speed in execution, because especially volatile days, price will be moving like a jigsaw. So you need to be extremely fast in your execution, and you look for stocks which are having very high volatility, because range-bound stocks will kill our time and it will kill our patience, and we'll be distressed and taking wrong decisions. So we should look for better volatile stocks. And you can look at this link. We have, you can look at NSE website. So the link is there. So if you click this link, it will go to the stocks which have broken the 52 weeks high and 52 weeks low. What does it intimate? 52 weeks is nothing but 1 year. So if your stock is breaking its 1 year level and going up, it means that it may go further higher. So that is the assumption. So that is another data that you can look at. Then you can use various technical indicators. So something like, this is these are indicators. You can just put indicators here. Since I locked out the the indicator went off, I'll just do it. So this is one of the indicators, okay, and so we can use indicators, and with that we'll be able to take a view. Say this is something like Bollinger Band, triple exponential moving average. So a lot of indicators are there. So based on the say something like it has broken this median, it is going up. So since it has broken this median and going up, you can go for a long, and you can make this profit. Okay. So there are various indicators. We have two sets of indicators. We have something called the lagging indicators, and there is something called leading indicators. Something like super trend or something is more of a leading stuff, and your moving averages are more of a sort of a lagging indicators. So depending on we can have just don't trust on one indicator. You can have multiple indicators. And another important thing that is you have to see is we have to see the volume that is building up. Okay, the prices are going up and volume is also equally building up. That means that the market is going up. There is a small tabular column which we will see. So this is how we have to use the indicators for pricing, for assessing the market. Okay, so and we can also use info vending companies. There are a lot of info vending companies. Due to lack of time, I'm not able to show you. I can show you TickerPlant. I can show you all the live news that is running on the markets. So you can have updated information on the news. Every stock-related news will be running, live there. So based on that news, also you can take your call. And never go against the market. Trend is a friend. And then comes this link in NSE link. If you go there, you can see the sectoral index movement. Say like the bank stocks, FMCG stocks. See the sectoral index, and if the beta is very correlated, then just have your trades in sync with the sectoral index, also taking that also as a reference point. So that's what we are talking about beta. Beta is nothing but the movement of the stock vis-a-vis the benchmark index like Nifty. Stock moves by 100 points. Nifty moves by 100 points. That means the beta is 1. So stock moves 200 points, Nifty moves 100 points, means the beta is 2. So that means the rewards also 2 times, the risk also 2 times. And the ulta is stock moves 50 rupees, Nifty moves 100 rupees, means the beta is 0.5. So it is a slow stock, slow beta stock. So when markets are going up, generally as we go in a truck, when you're going on a trekking, you see that going uphill is very difficult, but fall is very easy. Markets also behave that way. It's all like waves and energy. So when you are going uptrend, use strong stocks so that it goes most faster, because uptrend is slow. But when the markets are downtrend, look for some weak stocks so that your falls are relatively less. And very important thing for intraday trading is please have very strict stop loss. And trading discipline and all, we can keep talking for an hour or so, but we don't have time. A lot of things I thought of discussing today. So as long as you guys permit me, I will keep talking. So this is a very important relationship between open interest, volume, and price. Open interest is more used in derivatives, but here in case of shares, we just saw the price movement and the volume movement. Open interest comes in case of, say, futures, options, and all, wherein you are holding the position and you are waiting for coming out before the end of the contract. So those build up of those positions is called open interest. So there is if open interest is also increasing, volume is also increasing, the price is also going, means market is bullish and slowly the buy are building up, long is building up. Markets open interest is going up, volume is going up, and the prices are coming down, means there is a short build up. And open interest is coming down, volumes are also getting lowered, and prices are slowly dropping, then it means that people who have all booked to buy are going to sell and they are coming out. That process is called long unwinding. Open interest is coming down and the volume is low and prices are slowly started reversing and going up. That means short covering. That is, people who have sold are buying back at and booking profit. That's called short covering. So these are the four. There are many things. If you do option, we can have a grid like this: open interest, put call ratio, volatility index, price. So it can be a four-dimensional matrix. So now we are not getting into derivatives. So this is something basically, at least for cash.
Sorry to interrupt, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can we have one more time repetition of the same slide? So people are interested. Some of the
This one,
message.
this slide.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So ideally, we should show a live market and explain. I'm just rushing through. Like what we saw here. See, what we saw here is the price is going up, right? And your green is your up volume. So volumes are also increasing. I think I have a screenshot in the subsequent slide to explain that. So volumes are also increasing, price is also increasing. That being, because I have taken M&M share only, it is not futures. So for M&M, just the price of the share moving up and the volume going up, that means that market is going up. So this is more like what we see is like more like an energy flow. Okay, so it is like a river, like a cascade coming down. It is trying to rise up, but it is lost its energy and it is falling again, gaining momentum, going up. So it is like a wave. It's an energy flow. So here we are just seeing the price movement, the wave movement, and how many people are behind that. In physics, we have studied mass into momentum is mass into velocity. So velocity is the speed, mass is the people who are going into it. So the momentum is building because of more people coming into it and more volume is coming in. So that is the up market. I went in here and I'm going to one sec please. Hello. Yes sir. Excellent. Okay. Great. Great. Done. Okay, sir. Thank you. So what we are seeing is like the prices is going up, and commensurate to that, the volume is also increasing. So that means, you see here, the prices are slightly going up, but volumes are very less volume is there. So that means that it is not having the energy. So it is imminent to fall. So if at all you want to have bullish confirmation, just saying this this example, this is a Bollinger Band. This is something like a river flowing. You have the two-side banks. Basically, it is building on the past volatility. Okay. So here it is a constricted because the volatility was relatively less. Now, since the volatility increases, the bank, the river bank is also widening. So the median, when it is crossing the median, it means that it can go bullish. So it means you can buy here. And where will you sell? You will sell somewhere when it is crossing this or nearly touching this other end of the this thing. Similarly, when you are when it is crossing the median, then you can sell here and you can buy as long as it is below the median, you can buy here. So this is one indicator, though it is slightly lagging, but still it is one of the indicator. So we are taking an indicator support, and we are also taking support from the volume confirmation. This is for shares, just shares. But if you look at options and futures, we have to take confirmation from open interest also. Okay, so that is about the this is what the chart is saying. So your volume price is going up. Actually, I should have put it here. The price is going up. The volume is also going up. That means people are all going and buying in the market. And they have reached their potential level. They wanted to make some profit. Say they entered here and they are want to square off and book the profit here, and they start selling. So more people selling, so then there is more supply into the market, supply of that particular shares, more of demand supply stuff. So the prices are going to fall down. So that is what is happening here. The prices are slowly going, prices are slowly started coming down because these guys are going to sell it, start selling and booking profit. That is called, that is leading to short buildup. Okay, and more people do, then it will take a reversal. It will start. If all people who are booked in here are booking profit at coming out, then it will start reversing. If there is continuous building up of longs, then it will sustain and give the momentum, and these shares will keep moving up. So this is basically the correlation that is being talked between these two aspects. For shares, I think just these two will do, but for derivatives, we have to use open interest. There is something called a put call ratio. There is something called implied volatility. So all those things has to be studied, and then only we have to gauge and enter into the market for whether to enter or exit, or if you're already in the market, when to enter or exit. So that when to exit, that has to be decided by this particular grid. So very simple thing. So when prices are coming down, volume is also low, open interest also low, then it is long unwinding. The people who have all bought in, they are going to sell and come out. Similarly, when the prices are going to, after all the selling is happening and they're going to buy back, so this buy will create an upward thrust. So market will take a U-turn. So from here, we went there, they booked profit. So it is coming here. So people who sold here, when it is coming here, they will start buying again. So again, this will give a thrust. So it is like a sine curve going like this, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. So that is being explained here in this particular Excel sheet. So we have seen this is this you can see, like, you know, this price is consistently falling. I'm not mentioning the name of this particular script. So continuously falling, and there was again given an opportunity, people started massive selling, and this is how it ended up. It's a 3-year journey, very and this is from the technical side, from the price action, not technical, price action side. We have not put any indicators. We are just saying from the price movement and the volume movement. If you look at the fundamental data that is supporting, you can see, like, it is at it has hit a low of 5 rupees. Okay, it has hit a low of 5 rupees, and the dividend yield is one saving grace, wherein they are giving decent dividend. But for that, there are a lot of negative aspects. The contingent liabilities around 66.58 lakh crores contingent liability. It's a time bomb. Return on equity is poor. Promoter holding is also very, very minuscule. They have promoter has exited majorly from the company, and the interest coverage ratios are very, very interest coverage ratio is very, very poor. So these are the reasons. We have a fundamental backup for the logic behind the fall, which market is watching. So and then we go through the balance sheet and see what is happening with that company. So we have the cash flow statement, and what we see is, like, as we know, we have studied in our commerce, where there are 3 types of cash flow: cash flow from operation, cash flow from investing, and cash flow from financing activity. So all 3 will not be positive. Generally, at least one should be positive, and that should be this one. Your cash flow from operation has to be mandatorily positive. Even if the investing and financing that's not a major thing, but if this is a core objective of the survival of the organization, if the organization is not able to bring in positive cash flows, then investors will lose their confidence. And if you see, like, the 2 years, it is having a negative cash flow, and that is the reason you can see that 2 years it is the stocks has been dumped right royally, and it even hit close to 6 rupees. Okay, so that is and exactly during the year closings, and the year starts. So this is how we need to have a comprehensive look at any particular stock. We will see the price actions. We will see volumes of open interest. We will see how the derivatives is moving. That is also another important thing, because that when it comes to open interest, I'll just tell you, suddenly you see that assume that particular stock is having a F&O segment, and suddenly you feel that there is a huge OI built up on the buy side. Who is doing this huge OI open interest? What is open interest? Nothing but a huge building up of positions. Some 10,000 lots, 20,000 lots. If it is building, that it means that somebody is seriously buying it. So the biggest beauty about the financial market is information arbitrage. Not every information is available with everybody. The person who is getting the information first, or who is having the information faster, they will be able to make the money fast. So this information arbitrage is there between the retail population and the institutional customers in big institutions and banks. So they will have informations available readily based on which they'll be able to take a call. Whereas we people, retail people, we will not have access to those. Which hedge fund is buying, or which mutual fund is buying which company, which FIs are FIs, which segment they are going to invest, which company they are investing. So those information is not immediately privately available, publicly available. Though we call it as an efficient market, certain information doesn't trickle down to the last mile. So, so how do we find out? That can be easily found out by this OI. If you feel there is a huge OI building up, or there is a on the sell side or the buy side, accordingly you can trade. There is another way of trading in the markets. It is like, to put it in a very simple way, like when you go behind an ambulance, you go faster. You will get clearance from all the traffic signals. Same way, if you're tracking this OI, and if you see that huge volumes build up happening, then it means that there is something very good thing that is going to happen in the organization, likely. So you can take a punt and you can do that. Then comes the technical confirmation. It is again, there is two confirmations. I have done a super trend as well as moving average confirmation. So whenever this is breaking this guy, it will fall, and whenever it is going up, it is at times there may be some false signals creation also. For that only we have to get a double confirmation with the OI and volumes also. You need not necessarily confine with one indicator. You can have 2 indicators, 3 indicators, depending on the trading system that you have. So main thing, first initially at the LKG, UKG level, we'll just do Chuma trading. But once we get settled, you should have your own trading system. You should have your own system in place in which you are going to trade. So that subsequently some other day we will talk. So so this is how, this is how I'm just seeing how the futures price is moving at the spot price is moving. This is Hindustan Unilever share price that has moved in yesterday. So starting at 6336 June 3rd. So this is how it moved. What you see is just the near Xerox copy of the movement between the spot, the share price, the cash market, and the futures market. And Nifty futures, this is again yesterday's movement. So it crossed over here. So the Nifty which we talked about, the profit entered here and exited here. So this is the profit, the 20% return which we talked about. It is coming from this particular trade while crossing this, and when this guy is breaking here, exit. Okay, so this is how we have to use the combination of this thing, futures, and here we are talking about the comparison between futures and options. So market is going up. So you see that futures, Nifty futures is also going up. And this is Nifty call option of that at the money call option of 10,100. It's around 10,098 something level. Gloriously, we have crossed the 10,000 bandwagon yesterday. So slightly some relief in the market. So you see that the call premium movement and the Nifty futures movement are slightly in tandem. Okay. So here again, you buy here and you sell here. So if your view is right and if you're strong, you can make money in both the markets. Or if you're slightly dicey, you can do some covered strategies wherein you go long here and go short here. That we'll see in derivatives sometime. This thing. Okay. Now coming back to our matter of shares. So this is the discounted cash flow model. I'm not getting into it.
I'm sorry to disturb you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Our director is in the line.
Yes, sir.
I just want to have a few words. Welcome, sir.
Hello, sir. Nice
Hello, sir.
Yes,
sir. Good morning. Good morning. Good
morning, sir. Very good morning. Good morning, sir. Very good morning, sir.
Resource person. In fact, Srini talked very loudly about you, and I had the opportunity to listen a couple of sentences which you uttered. In fact, it's the dicey situation. Anyway, so I think I'll be engaging with another webinar very shortly. So I wish you all the very best, and we are actually will be seeking your support.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Time to time, as and when that seems fit.
Sure.
And,
sure.
And personally, I like to talk to you. I get the number from Srinivasan. I will discuss about this matter. How we'll go forward.
Yeah.
how we take it forward. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Pakka,
Wish you all
pakka. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I continue. So what we do in this particular analysis of shares is we try to find the value of this particular share. This we are going to do using mathematically, either using models or doing in simple Excels also you can calculate. We'll be seeing how much of cash flows a company is going to generate with the free cash flows. Free cash flows is like, after removing the debt obligation, how much of cash is being generated. That's a free cash flow. So what is going to be the free cash flow that the company is going to build, and that you're going to discount it over the period. You have divided into two parts: a near term, mid term, and the perpetual terminal value long term. So you have grids divided, and according to these particular growth rate, you are going to discount it, and you are going to arrive at the present value. And with this, you will be discounting some sort of a model error, and the other error you will be discounting it, and you will be arriving at the total present value of all the future cash flows. And you know how many number of shares are available in that company. So if you divide the present value of the cash flows by the total number of shares outstanding, this thing, you will get this value. So
sir, excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, your slides not viewed, sir. You can share it, sir. So once again, that sharing. Yes, sir, please.
Okay, it is here. Okay. Can it be seen, sir? Is it?
Now it is visible, sir. You can mute the slides.
Okay. So this is how we find the value of this particular share. This is called share valuation. There are various models for doing valuation of shares. That is a separate ocean by itself. So what we're trying to do is we are finding the value of the share, the intrinsic value. So it is say 255. This is what you have theoretically found out. Assuming that currently the market price of this current market price is around 300, that means it is overpriced. Assume that this particular, it is 255. Currently, that share is trading at around 240. Then it is underpriced. So you can fairly price or competitively price. You can buy it right away. So all you need to do is find by either models or by calculations. There are a lot of applications, apps also right now available. So you can find out the particular value, fair value of this particular share. And you just need to see whether the current market price is overpriced or underpriced. Accordingly, you can do your buy-sell decision. All we need to do is I'll just share. There are around 2,000 companies, close to 2,000 companies listed in NSE. Which companies to buy? There comes the question. So always we will look for companies which are debt-free. You remember there was an article in newspaper last month, COVID problem. Maruti has to pay 250 crores as salary to their employees, and the number of cars sold in that month of April was 0. So with the nil income, company was able to take care of the the obligations of their employees by paying salary. So how is it possible? It was possible because they had very, very, very less debt or near zero level debt. So you should look for companies which are having zero debt. Very, very important. So these are all the various ratios. It will not, we will not have time to go through all these things. So all we need to see is there are slides on ratios also. So what I'm trying to say is we will look for debt-free companies. So there are, as of yesterday, these are all the companies. This is a sales turnover, and this is a current market price. Their PE is there. The industry PE is also available. So we will just see whether their PE is less than the industry's PE, and they are zero debt. And we will see other ratios also. How much of dividend they are giving. How is the current market price with respect to their book value? How much is the promoter holding? Whether they have pledged in it. This again is a dangerous thing. Pledged percentage. Since they are debt free, they will not have pledge. Obviously, it goes without saying. How is the profit growth happening? How is the current ratios? the interest coverage ratios, all those things. See, it's beautiful. For 4,559, 4,600 is the interest coverage ratio. That means they have huge cash with them to service. They are anyhow, they are debt free. There is where is the question of interest coverage coming in. So these are the ways in which the return on equity. So all those things, these are companies which we should look at, and we should of these 50 companies, you should see which companies in the industry is in the sunrise sector right now, and then we have to place a bet and wait till the market is. There are different views of taking it, whether we should jump in right away or we should wait watch. There are different schools of thought. Some people will wait for the bottom and buy. Some people don't mind buying midway and selling on the while coming back. Say something like, we are somewhere here and market has fallen from here and has come here. Whether to buy here or buy back here. So some people will not buy here. They'll say, I'll wait for a confirmation for it to go at least some 10%, 15% up. Then only I will buy. So he has bought here. And it has gone and it is going to peak somewhere here. So he is not going to wait till the peak happening. So he is a safe guy. So he will buy here and he will exit somewhere here itself. There are some people who take the full circus, go there, and they will sell once that has peaked and it is coming again to the other end. So there are different styles of trading. So everyone has their own. There is nothing right or wrong in markets. Everybody has their own style of trading. So this is how you need to look for these debt-free companies. Do cherry picking. And look for do their intrinsic value calculation and see what is the current market price, and the intrinsic value is lesser than the current market price, and all these ratios are all supporting. You should wait, watch, and once there is a crash, you should buy it. So I remember Warren Buffett used to often say, like, I like these market downtrends wherein I will sit with cash. I will go and buy these in bulk. Okay, so but this time coronavirus is totally different scenario where liquidity is the biggest issue which corporates are facing right now. Financial crisis 2008 or the earlier crisis were more linked to the financial markets, whereas this particular crisis has beaten every sector, and it has hit the supply chain system itself. The demand supply, everything is disrupted. It will take a year or two for the entire globe to get reset back to likely. Provided we are able to find a vaccine for this particular stuff, this particular pandemic. So even Warren Buffett is not investing though markets were down, because he says like he wants hold cash at this point of time. Probably he's having his insurance segment also there. One of his thing he has invested in that segment, and probably there are a lot of insurance claim that is going to come in, like what happened during the 2008. Then he has to properly honor those insurance claims. So he feels like, I don't want to go and knock to my friends and relatives for money when my insurance claims are my customers are asking for insurance claims. So I will sit on the pile of cash and I'll honor. I don't want to disturb others. At the age of 90, he's talking this. So what I'm trying to say is cash is the king, especially during this pandemic situation. We need to be staying highly liquid. So try to invest only in stocks wherein you will be able to immediately liquidate and come out. So this is on the ways we can cherry pick stocks. I will not go detailed into this thing. This another product. This is something called securities lending and borrowing. I'll just quickly run through. What we have learned is like, in case of buying a product, you can buy and sell. But without having the product, can you sell the product? Yes, it is possible. That is called short selling. What is short selling? Let's say there is a company A, and company A right now the share price is around 300 rupees, and the quarter results are going to come somewhere next month or so, and next week or so, and you feel that the price are going to fall. So you want to take a bet on that. And that point of time, without even having the shares in your Demat account, what you can do is like you can borrow that shares from your broker or from the market, and that will be notionally part to your account. And by virtue of that, you will be selling that stock. That is called short selling. And as you anticipated in that short period of time, 1 week, 2 weeks, say 2-3 weeks, the prices also fell down from 100 rupees to say 80 rupees or 90 rupees. So you make a quick kill. 10 rupees per share is a profit that you make. But you don't have your vehicle. It is like, Zoom car. It's not your car. You have borrowed the car and you are driving. So for that, you have to pay rent to that Zoom car. Similarly, you have to pay rent to the person who has lent the securities to you. So you have made 10 rupees profit, okay? and the other person who is going to lend the shares to you, he is also making profit, because his intention is not to exit. He is a long-term investor of this company. What is the fun in just having your shares just sitting idle in your Demat account? So to monetize that and to get money out of that particular dead stocks lying in your Demat account, the person is going to sell the shares and lend the shares to somebody who is interested in doing a short selling. So that is one thing that's called short selling. There is another objective. This basically it's a product by itself. It is between 9 a.m. to 9:15 to 5 p.m. and there are only 300. There are around 300 odd securities in the segment that can be eligible to be this for lending and borrowing. Assume that you have some shares in your Demat account, some 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 shares, and you don't intend to sell only in the near future. Then you can obviously do this and make money out of it. It is like you have a car and you use it only in weekend. During weekdays, you give it for rental and make money out of it. Similar to that stuff. Okay, so this is these are all 12 monthly contracts available, and they have settlement is on a T+ basis. Suppose I have lent the money, I will get the income the next day. So that is on a T+ basis. When I'm going to exit, when is the contract expiring? The contract is expiring not on the last Thursday of the month. The contract in SLB is expiring on the first Thursday of the respective series. So by first Thursday of say July, likewise. Okay, so this is the product. I'm not getting into the details of the contract specification because it will come over time, big ways. We will just there is another concept called reverse cash and carry arbitrage. We would have studied in your this thing, wherein the futures price is trading less when compared to the spot price. So when futures price is trading lesser than the cash market price, spot price, so then that will lead to reverse cash and carry arbitrage. This is one example. Say stock price is trading at 410 rupees, whereas a particular futures is trading at 390 rupees. So what happens? So this gives room for reverse cash and carry arbitrage, wherein you will sell the item which is cheaper and you will buy the item which is priced higher, and towards the expiry of the contract, the sell will become buy and buy will sell into square off and come out, and you make a gross profit of 20 rupees. So this is called a reverse cash and carry arbitrage. We'll see in real life. This I have taken last month. I know Shriram Transport. There is somebody who is seeing, say, like the futures price is 776, whereas the spot price is around 804 rupees, 805. So what do you see? The difference between the share price and the futures price is around 29 rupees is there. Okay, so somebody wants to take this arbitrage, so but he is not having that share in his pocket, in his Demat account. So what he is saying, he is coming to this platform, this SLB platform, and he is putting a quote for borrowing. He is quoting 20 rupees for borrowing for 1,200 shares, 20 rupees. Why? The intrinsic value is 28.75. So he is ready to give 20 rupees to the person who is going to lend the share, and at least some 8 rupees he's made, just free money, just arbitrage, because there is no risk there or minimal risk there. So since arbitrage is risk-free strategy, of this 28, he is ready to sacrifice 20 rupees and give to the person who is ready to lend it. So what is the objective of the lender? Lender invariably, these 1,200 shares are just sitting idle in his Demat account. Rather, at least he will get this 20 into 1,200. You get around 24,000 rupees just like that for a matter of how many days? This is actual data. For a matter of 18 days, he is getting 24,000 rupees for having this particular shares. So this is a product called SLB, which you guys can look at in the future once you become an investor, and if you're holding good stocks. If at all there is an opportunity coming in the market, you can either be on the lending side or you can be on the borrowing side. Same thing. This was in the morning around the market opening, and by around 1:40 p.m. I've taken the data. You can see like there's somebody who is ready to quote 40 rupees for borrowing, and the lender is quoting 55 rupees for lending. So these guys, two guys, they will somehow try to, he will try to increase and he will come to decrease, and somehow when the bid and ask are going to match through, then the deal is done through. So this is a typical trading terminal. wherein you can either bid and you can ask. You can bid for a quote and you can ask for a quote, and when this is matching, you will be making a profit. So this is a beautiful product. Short selling, I already explained by taking 100 rupees to 90 rupees. So 100 rupees I sold, 90 rupees I'm going to buy back, and assuming that there is a rental charges of 5 rupees, still I make 5 rupees. So this is called a short selling. So this is taxation, important thing. This will be treated as other income, because there is no actual physical movement of, it is just there is no movement into the other person's account. It is still the ownership is lying with the lender only. So it is, and STT is also not applicable, and there is no capital gain tax, because he is not gaining. It is not coming into his account. Shares is not actually getting into his account. So this is from a taxation perspective. Checklist for selecting a company's share. Another 10 slides. I will quickly run through. Let's see, don't go for unlisted shares. Don't as a starter. There are a lot of brokers who are also there to facilitate buying and selling of unlisted shares, but not at an early level. We should not get into this. Don't get into inactive shares, which is having less than 2 transactions per month. Don't buy shares from closely held companies. That is, if there are less than 10,000 shareholders in the company, don't ever think of buying those shares. Look for quality management, which are more focused on growth, more forward-looking and progressive-looking management companies. Size of the companies, avoid companies with which is having less than 10 crore of equity capital or 100 crore of sales turnover. And the Excel sheet we have seen that zero debt companies. Look for some 500 crore, 1,000 crore companies, and you can just watch their intrinsic value and do cherry picking from there. And look for diversified companies. It shouldn't be a single location, single point, a single product company, because risks becomes very high. It should be diversified. At the same time, it should not be too much diversification also. I don't want to quote name of the companies because it's not fair. There are companies just doing beautifully well here in Tamil Nadu, but they diversified into multiple avenues, but they were all sunrise industry only. But unfortunately, the cash cow got killed, and that killed the main business as well as the subsidiary business also. So too much diversification is also risky, and too little diversification also risky. So you just need to look at this aspect also. And this all will come in fundamental analysis. We have to see the product life cycle of the company or the product, the cash cow product, and see where the company is heading to. Like what we see in the Reliance, the oil industry is in the product life cycle. It's in decline phase, and it will go dead in another 20-30 years. So Reliance has tactically moved out from the oil industry, and they have got into data industry and other retail industries. So that is how we need to see how is the PLC working for this company and the product. Avoid companies which is getting into environmental tangles. It's again very we can be sensitive in this part also. And you can be a green investor that way. You can be proud of that also. And also, when you look at the balance sheet, you can see the contingent liabilities and other legal aspects. If you go through the notes, you can see PF pending, settlement pending, bonus pending for those. These are certain things which are triggers which you should pick up. Reading the balance sheet annual report itself is a big story altogether. So we just need to have our eyes, ears, mind open to read all those things. And in fundamental analysis, we'll be doing this Porter's FIFO's analysis, Pestel, Boston Consultancy Group analysis, SWOT analysis. So before, these are all meant for long-term investors. If you want to invest for a 2 year, 3 years tenor, we have to do all these things. Then comes look for companies with consistent growth and net profits, at least for the past 2 to 3 years. This we have already seen. There should be cash flow from operations should be positive, or else it's going to be deadly. Increasing, there should be net worth dilution should not be there. They should have the retained profits, because then only it shows a stable outlook. And reserves also should be good, and the company should plow back the profits, and the retained profits is an indication that they are going to stay put in the particular company's venture. Book value, you have to see the book value. Book value is nothing but if you're going to liquidate the company and if you settle down all the debts, whatever is amount of assets that is left back, that particular stuff divided by number of shares gives a book value. So if the book value is less than 1, then it is undervalued. If book value is crossing 2, 2.5, just better sell. And if it is more than 3, then we need not even think about it, that particular share. So attractive pieces around 0.5, 0.7 stuff. P ratio, it's a very dynamic thing. We can't have there. Generally, we say like the P ratio, ideal P ratio. It's a global benchmark, we can say. What they say is if the P ratio is somewhere between 10 to 12, it's a very attractive buy. And it is attractive buy as long as it is touching 15. Once it is going from 15 to 22, then I think it is going to peak. And after 22, anytime it will fall. By God willingly, God forbid, if it is touching 30, then it is going to be a bubble. To give a very practical example, you would have, if somebody is tracking Bitcoin, you would have seen like, it went from $3,000 to close to $19,900 by December 2007. He was somewhere freaking out. It was already crossed 30 levels, and markets were saying like this is going to burst. And there were some like money heist. There were some theft happened across some coin exchanges, and that led to the crash. That was the last straw that broke the camel's back. So likewise, what I'm trying to say is this P is a very important indicator that we need to say, and there is no paka yardstick. What you say, like I am ready to, in case of when a movie is getting released, for 100 rupees ticket, I am ready to pay even 500 rupees ticket because I am the Rasika of that particular star. Maybe so. The same way, I'm a hardcore fan. I have a huge, anticipation, expectation about this particular share. I feel that I'll get huge value, so I'm ready to pay extra money to buy that particular share. That's a perception in the market. So P is just a perception in the market about that particular share price. So we can't just say 12, 10 to 12. It's all theory. But if you look at the Excel sheet, there are cases. You say like Hindustan Unilever P is around 72. Industry P is 66, but their P is around 72, but still it is a stable, like a ship it is sailing. So there are certain very green companies, not the environment green, some big companies, people are ready to pay even higher also. So all we need to see is if it is some weird numbers, immediately you need to see what is the industry PE. And high capital intensive industries, huge capital intensive industries, either in the form of stocks and this thing, or huge capital industries, P may be skewed like this. So it is not just the 15, 20, 22 numbers. It is also a mix of what the industry P standard is talking about. You need to take a balanced call there. EPS is the income per share that you're going to get, whether before the dividend is given or not. That is EPS. What is the yield? What is the? He talks about if it is around 2%, it is around average yield is around 2% of the market value of the share. That is good one. Okay, so that is the dividends that you are going to get out of this thing. It is indirect implication of that. So growth shares, since these guys are going to plow back into this thing, they won't give good dividends. So the yield will be relatively less in case of growth shares. So this is a graph which talks about the Nifty PE and the Nifty prices. What you have seen is like whenever it is touching, this is Nifty value and this is a PE value. This is as old as March 2020. What you have seen is like during this financial crisis, it even touched 7 levels. Beautiful level to buy. So you can see that 7 or 10 is beautiful level to buy, and it went to like skyrocket to 25. As we saw, anything about 20 to 25 is, it is about to come down, and it has straight away fallen down to this thing. And so these are the world has been studying all these numbers for decades now, and they have come out with this thing. So if somebody is saying that 10 is a good level, 20 is a good level, then it is basically psychology that people will okay, it has already reached 20, so I will sell. So it is a herd mentality. People start selling and buying. So by doing this, when you walk through a green lawn, many people walking, and that becomes a track. Similarly, this psychology has been fed into the minds of people, and that is how market also behaves to this like a magic wand, 22, 10. It is operating. Okay, and dividends per share. These are all the ratios. It is very easily understandable how much of dividend payout they are giving. So that is a good one, good ratio. Return on investment or return on capital employed. So how much they have put in funds, how much of profitability they are able to make out of the business. So better the number, good for us. Return on equity, return on the net worth. It also talks about how much on the investment, their equity part, how much they are able to get returns, the promoters from that point of view. The return on assets, it is on the tangible assets we need to generally take. Let us not take into the fixed asset part. So the returns, higher the returns, it is good for us. PEG ratio, PE ratio, as we saw, it is more like, very, we have seen like, there are some growth stocks, there are some stable stocks, the different industries across. PE is all not justifiable. So how do we do that? We are adding one more element to it. So what is that dimension? We are going to add the growth factor. That is a future growth factor. linkages between the price, the future growth factor, as well as a PE. How is the PE behaving? How is the market expecting the prices to go up with respect to the expected growth for this particular script? So that is being talked about from by using PEG ratio. If it is close to PEG is close to 1, it is fairly priced, and if it is less than 1, it is undervalued. So these ratios, thumb rules, you can just have it in mind. And when you there are a lot of, if you go to Money Control, we have something called screener. In screener, you can put all these ratios and you can build your own screener. Okay, so accordingly you can put your filter, and you can you need not do fundamental analysis by downloading individual balance sheet and doing gone are the days. You have screeners available in this thing. You can just download it and you can straight away see those ratios. This is very, very, very critical ratio. This is both from a banking perspective as well as these three I have just added. This is important for you guys to look at it. Though stock market, they don't come into this, but it's very, very important. This is total outside liability to the tangible net worth. So this industry varies from industry to industry, but ideally it is ideally 2 is okay. So anything above 3 is not okay. And debt service coverage ratio, this is the amount of cash flow. With the cash flow, how much whether I am able to service the loan. So this is another very important thing. Higher the value, better it is. Similarly, interest coverage ratio, whether with the cash flows that I'm getting, will I be able to at least service the interest cost? So these are something which you need to have a look at it. I didn't talk about contingent liability. I didn't talk about off-balance sheet items. So these are time bombs. We can talk about your Enron case. That itself will take a lot of time. So it is not there are a lot of things that we need to look before buying and selling. And from a price action point of view, when to buy and when to sell, when to time it. If it is you take the last year's high figure and low figure, and you do only for the growth shares. Okay. If the current price is higher than the previous year's peak, then it means that the stock is already fully priced or overpriced. So it is better to not go in for fresh buys. If the current price is average of last year's price, so last year high was 200 and the low was 100, so the average is 150. So right now the share is trading around 140. Then okay, you can go for a buy. These are all something like thumb rule. These are all not like templated proven stuff. These are one among the guiding ways. These need not be taken with the sacrosanct levels. These are some of the mundane ways of analyzing and getting a view on the market. Current price is more than previous year high. It is better you sell and take the profit. So this is one way of looking at it. And also you need to study the market cycles, and you can sell in the boom and buy during the dips. So that we have already seen, whether it would on the peak or we have to do slightly at the lower level, higher level. That depends on the individual's risk appetite and his personality, trading personality. And as we keep trading and trading, we become a natural trader. So it depends on individual's personality. That's what you're saying. Don't wait for the peak to come. Do it midway, and stick to your take profit. Let's say, like here we were talking about this thing. I sold here. I got this confirmation. I am okay with this profit. So if this was in my mind, I should happily accept it and move out. So that is what is important. Trading discipline. If I have decided that I want this much profit only, though you have a sea of profit out here, we should have the mental maturity to book that profit and get out. Similarly, if your view goes wrong and if it is going up and you are done a sell here, you should have the mental maturity to book the loss and come out. So that comes the trading discipline and mental maturity and the emotional quotient comes with over a period of. That's what you're saying. Cut losses, and whenever you are going wrong. Okay. And another important thing is don't hold a share that you if at all you are holding a share, and assume that you are not holding the share, and will you be enticed to buy the share at this current level? If you're not getting a charm of holding that share, then it is better that we sell it out. And there is no emotional attachment. There is no marriage with companies or stocks. We will just be value pickers, and we'll be just moving along with the trend. This we have seen. Don't sharp fall can be an opportunity to buy. Certain informations may come in earlier, so before it comes to the glare of the public, it is try to make use of it. Look for expansion projects coming up, and and you buy it before the commercial operation starts. And once the production starts and the commercial profit, the profits are getting reflected, then you sell and come out. So you have to go early and exit early. This one, and this we already discussed how the derivatives. The last part I will just quickly run through. So this is what is happening right now in the market is the algo trading. Algo trading is nothing but we have talked about. No, I manually put the buy order and I will put the sell order. So I have been doing manually, but there is a lot of problem with this thing. What are the problems? Emotional quotient, fat finger. Fat finger is nothing but instead of putting a buy, I put a sell. Instead of putting 1,000 shares, I put 1,000 lots. So those things, these are human errors, can create a havoc to the system. So to avoid that, you can, if you can depute this job to the machine, they will do it beautifully well for us. So all we need to do is like this is a slightly complicated stuff. What you are trying to say is there is an exchange, and from the exchange you will be having the data coming in, and let us say this is API data that is coming in, and there is a bridge that is connecting, and this is the trading system wherein you have put the algo this thing. So you have the API feed, you have a bridge that is something like a middleware connecting these two computers, these two servers, and this fellow will execute the order, and that gets executed in the exchange system. Okay, so this is very high speed execution. So if you are having, say, like when I was working with the exchange, that time these lease lines and all were not there. We used to have this VSAT connectivity. So during winter season, when the clouds are there, people will not get connectivity only. The system will hang, means data will hang. So that and all won't work in case of algorithmic trading. We should have servers very close to the exchange platform to avoid the latency. Latency is getting delayed in data. Okay, so this latency can be avoided has to be avoided in case if you're going for algo. Algo trading is nothing but you have put the algorithm. You have we saw here we are talking about trading systems, right? What did we say? This guy should break and come down, and I will move my trailing stop loss from this level to this level. So everything, whatever we have it in mind, we have to write it, we have to code it in Python or whichever coding language, and you have to feed it to this computer. So this coding is done and it is fed to this computer. On one side you have live data, and this coded machine will do the execution and the trading gateway, and through that seamlessly it is getting executed on the stock exchange. So this is called algo trading. In US and in developed markets, which is there right from early 90s, this is very strong there. I think in US, close to 75% of the trades that is happening in the US market is through algo trading. India, I think this came in a bit late, close to 2008 only. It became aggressively, implemented. Right now, the algo trades are constituting close to 40%. Close to, there are different asset classes and different products have different levels. Algo trading is doing around 40% of the trade that is happening in the exchange platform. But this is predominantly done by these big broking firms. Okay, and now there are broking firms which are taking algo even to the retail level, like people like you and me also. So things are changing. What I want to tell you people is like the typical brick and mortar style, wherein you have this outcry system of buying and selling shares at the trade floor, gone. Then we came with internet trading. Then we came with mobile trading. Then we came with app-based trading. These are all obsolete now. Now everybody is talking about algo. Algo is also becoming a talk of the town. Now people are talking about high frequency trading. Okay, high frequency trading is it is a subset of algorithmic trading, wherein you'll be writing machine learning, artificial intelligence programs, and that machine will be analyzing and they will be picking the stocks for you. These algorithms, these machine learnings, artificial intelligence, neural network programs and all are being returned, and they will be even going and finding out which particular script is going to increase OI. Because if you look at order types, there are something called wherein you can have the order quantity need not be disclosed. There are certain types of orders also. In foreign countries, these algorithms and these machine learning programs can even go and somehow find out those things also, private information also, and they will strategize and they will do the buy sell before even other people know this guy will do it. So that information arbitrage is not done by man, now it is done by machines. So world is moving towards that. Already in the US, this is very, 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 very common thing. So we are also moving into this algorithmic trading and high frequency trading. And this artificial intelligence fund, I'll just close it another 5 minutes time, if it is okay with you guys. So alternate investment fund is nothing but it is it is a SEBI registered hedge fund sorts. Okay, in India we don't have hedge funds, predominantly big ways like what we have in the US market. All we have seen is only the portfolio management system, wherein we will give the portfolio to somebody, some SEBI registered PMS company, and they'll be doing the investment for us, and they will give the profit. Assuming that there'll be some sort of agreement between them and the client, saying like the risk-free rate of return available in the market is say 7%. If I put in post office, they'll get 7%. So that is no man's world. Assuming that this guy is giving me 20% return, that means what he's going to give me 13% extra than the risk-free rate of return. On that 13%, I will be sharing say 30% of the profit. So the 70% of the remaining amount comes to me. The 30% of the 13% goes to the PMS wala. That is his income. And when he is doing buying and selling, he is getting this brokerage income also. And when he is managing the funds for you, say you are putting some 50 lakhs or 1 crore rupees, there will be some asset AUM fees. They will be charging around 1% or 2%. So that this is how they operate. Okay, so this is the PMS which is there for quite a long time. So here they generally invest predominantly in the cash market, in the shares, whereas alternate investment funds behave more like a hedge fund. And there are three categories: category 1, category 2, category 3. Category 1 is more like linked to funding to SMEs, wherein they get some incentives from the government. Category 2 is a mixed, and category 3 is they invest in these guys will invest in some sort of venture capital related things, and these guys will invest in products like commodity derivatives, equity derivatives. These guys will invest in derivatives also, whereas these guys will invest only in the shares. They are more on the cash market basis, but these guys are more on the derivatives basis. So here, this is for conservative small-time people or investors. This is for people, HNIs, who are having huge money and they want to take a bet in the market, and they are ready to take the risk also, because these are derivative trades. But these guys will be very highly quants based guys, so there will not be any these guys will not they will, because their skin on the trade is there, because it's not like a mutual fund manager wherein he is just doing the trade for other people. Here his skin on the trade is also there. That means his money is also there. It is like I have a hotel and I am also having the food there in the hotel. That means that there is the food is okay for a customer. Same way, whatever trade this guy is done by AIF, the AIF's investment portion is also there. So that is another safety factor. It is that can be assumed as a safety factor. Here pooling of fund is allowed, and you can pool in funds, but here it is individual customers' funds are kept separately. But here pooling is allowed, and here the minimum ticket size is 1 crore. To start a AIF, I think 2012 was when we started for the equity market, and 2015-16 is when we started AIF for commodities. The minimum ticket size, the AIF fund start should be around 20 crores. And the minimum contribution per person is 1 crore. That means 1 crore into 20 people. Or one person gave 1 crore, other person gave 19 crores. So somehow it may be, whatever it may be, 20 crore is required minimum starter, and it has to be in multiples or 1 or more than that. So there are, so basically, so this is what it is talking about. And each scheme of should not have more than 1,000 investors. And there are a good lot of AIF companies that are coming in. And these guys have sector-specific investments or theme-specific investments, and they are giving substantially decent, good amount of returns. I have seen even term sheets and past performance ranging even 30%, 40% returns CAGR basis. So that is another good opportunity for us in case, once you settle in your life and you have funds with you to manage, you can explore AIFs, because we don't have a proper hedge fund in India like in the US right now. The last slide, developments in markets. We have alternate investment, we have already discussed. SME exchange, because like we have seen around 2,000 companies in the main board, but there are SMEs which are needing equity capital, risk capital. So NSE has a separate platform wherein SMEs can come and get listed. The advantage out here is like in case if I'm going and getting listed in the SME platform, then for me to get into the main board becomes very, very easy. It is like if I've joined the school in the 9th standard, for me getting admission in the 11th standard is very easy because I'll just walk through the vestibule. Whereas if I go and go for a main board listing, it becomes very stringent, compliance requirements from SEBI and from the regulators' perspective. So it's a good boon for the SME segment, and more than 500 SMEs have already raised money through this SME exchange. And what to say, like here it is not meant for us. You and me cannot become the investors there. Only HNIs and big people are allowed to become the investor in the SME exchange. This we already discussed. Under one umbrella, all the asset classes are coming. These depositories also have this interportability. The CDSL, NSDL, the securities kept across can be easily accessed across. That vestibule is also been created. We have a GIFT City in Gujarat, Gandhinagar. We have this there, and by virtue of that, if the broker is having an office there in that Gujarat GIFT City, it is equivalent to having an office abroad. Banks, like if you look at banks like IndusInd Bank, I think IndusInd Bank they didn't have an for example, they don't have an office in international markets. So by virtue of opening an account, having an office there in GIFT City, it is equivalent to having an office abroad. So that way they'll be able to raise money for buyer's credit and all those foreign capital. They'll be able to raise easily because it is equivalent to having an office abroad. So the same benefit we are getting by having the brokers office set in this GIFT City, and exchanges also have subsidiaries there wherein they are able to, members can become a member of the brokers can become a member in that subsidiary, and they'll be able to get access to international markets. That is another beautiful thing that is happening right now. Commodities market options have come. Interest rate derivatives, we have interest rate futures and interest rate options. And that is again a very beautiful product, but not much known in the public. Deliveries, all the commodity deliveries have been made compulsorily deliverable contracts. So all the end users are trying to make good use of it. We have seen there is a surge in volume in algo trading and high frequency trading. We have discussed about that. It is already touching 30-40%. Robo advisory and robo trade. Robo advisory is nothing but I was just talking to a friend sometime last year. He was telling certain huge big broking firms, foreign broking firms, when they set office in the other countries, they will not go for mass marketing. They will be having something like a templatized questionnaire sort of a thing. Some 50-60 questions will be asked. The customers will be profiled. Then based on the profile of the answer itself, the robo itself will decide whether I will take the customer or I will reject the customer. So that is the robo is going to do, the machine is going to do all the profiling, all the risk analysis, all the everything is being done by the machine, and it will suggest exactly what is required based on the risk reward ratio of that particular client based on his profile. So that is more from a wealth enhancement point of view. This robo advisory, robo trading, and if it is linked to trading, it becomes robo trading. If it is linked to wealth management, it is called robo advisory. This is also picking up big waves because we are trying to emulate whatever is happening in the international markets. This is taking a killing right now. Data analytics, because as we discussed this high frequency trading HFT, it is like within a fraction of seconds. If you look at algo trading and all, the trade will get executed in just 1 microsecond. 1 microsecond. That is 1 micro is how much it is? 10 power minus 6. Like it's very fraction of a second, microsecond. And this was in 2012. Now international market trades are happening in nanosecond. So just imagine within a nanosecond, the buy and sell is being executed. Then you just imagine the amount of accuracy you should have in the market in doing the buy and sell. If you are slipping, you are lost to the battle to some other fast algo trader or a high frequency trader. Earlier, the guys used to say the big fish will eat the small fish. Now it is not the case. The fast fish will eat the small fish. That is the present market situation. Okay, so for that, the data analytics, machine learning, and this becomes very important. And in foreign countries and all, they will look for PhDs in PhD holders only will be doing this high frequency trading. To that extent, they want fundu guys, especially in quantitative finance, mathematics, and calculus, all those things, and coding. Fintech companies are also setting shops big ways in India. There are people who are giving trading platforms. They are giving charting platforms. They are people implementing companies who are taking license from the exchanges, and they are disseminating the live data. And there are people who are developing contents about the market, and there are people who are doing a lot of analytics. There are a lot of apps also. I'm seeing a lot of analytics coming in, which talks about all the option Greeks, a lot of things, put call ratio, everything, every delta, beta, gamma, everything is there in just a tab. So just in an app. So all these analytics, a lot of companies, a lot of fintech companies have come in the last 2 years. Proliferation is the minimum word that we have to use. Good way, that is good way that it is proliferating, because we are moving on the right direction, and the margins are also increasing. So that way, one way, we have to stay protected from the volatility of the market. So some of the products margins have increased, and government securities. If you have 10,000 rupees, you'll be able to invest in government securities in India. So that is again another good development. You need not necessarily invest only in the equity market. Even with a mere 10,000 rupees, you will be able to start investing in government bonds as a retail individual. And investment, we have discussed about the GIFT City and investing in international markets. You can anyhow, the liberalized remittance scheme is there, wherein an individual can invest up to $2.5 lakh abroad. So you have this listed shares are also there, foreign shares you can buy, or you can have these ETFs which are investing in these international shares. So Indian ETFs. So you can invest abroad, because when you are going for diversification, if you are going to diversify abroad, say for example, the returns in the US market and the China market are going to be much better than the Indian markets at this particular point for this near term. So that means people who are having international, drive for international markets, they will be interested in investing in these markets. So nothing wrong there, because portfolio is getting diversified. Okay. So these are the career, this thing. If you are strong in markets, you can get placed in mutual fund houses, asset management companies, big broking firms, banks, investment banks, merchant bankers, stock exchanges, custodians, depositories, research firms, hedge funds, AIFs. These investment banking companies, like a lot of guys are having their back office operations here in Chennai and across. So these guys are requiring people with these skill sets in the markets. And what are the skill sets immediately required? These are all the skill sets that is required. Working knowledge about markets, strong hang of derivatives, hang of mutual funds and mutual fund accounting, algorithm trading, technical analysis, financial modeling, coding, like programs like Python and R, business analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. So these are all are the skill sets right now that is required, because what they say is by 2022, close to 47% of the skill sets that we are having are going to be obsolete. And I was talking to a friend who is in this the job related job hunter, this thing. He was saying even data science is slowly becoming obsolete. People are already moved towards machine learning and artificial intelligence. There is huge demand for this. And now people are even saying, like, Python also will slowly lose its thing. And there is another program by name Pony that is going to come in. Snake is getting replaced by horse. Pony will come in soon. So people are going leaps and bounds. So I think when you are going to face the market, from a career point of view or from a market point of view, I think people should have hands-on, at least hands-on feel of, if not all, at least a few of this, so that it becomes easy for you to make money in the market, or engage in a meaningful conversation with people in the industry, or get placed, or advance in your career, or have it as one of the stepping stone and move into that particular line of business. So so this is all I had to talk. I'm sorry that I have started late and I have breached the line and I have gone long. I am open for any questions, if any.
Participants can ask questions, post questions. If you have any doubts, you can please.
I have one doubt.
Yes, sir.
How we can avoid the scam in the stock market? There are any preventive measures we have to do?
As an individual investor, as an
I
individual
am
investor.
David.
Sorry, sir. As an investor.
Investor, how we can avoid the scams in stock market?
We need to what type of scam?
For example, there are some fake server will run. Somebody are misleaded. They went there and invested. Then next day the server is gone, like that.
Sir, basically that is the market risk which we are talking about. That to see, like even in countries like the developed countries like US, even during this COVID crash and all, markets hit circuit, and there are even servers went down, and during this crude oil crisis also, it is these are market risks which we need to always factor in our mind, sir, because many things don't happen intentionally. When there is a huge surge of trade happening, and that too we are talking about algos and retail algos, and people are getting into aggressive trading, there will be huge long build up and short build up that will happen during such high volatile times. Systems can even crash also. Okay, so that is something. And if it is one customer, then we can. If it is many customers, how is it being done? So that is thing which we need to handle it with caution. That is why we call this as risk capital. That is why with the start itself I told, please don't borrow money, please don't put your hard-earned savings here. Please invest only the surplus money which you feel that it is not going to come back to me.
Okay.
We will put 100 rupees and it has become 200 rupees. Then you remove the first 100 rupees. That means the first your initial capital has come back safely to you. After that, it is market's money. There is one book called Zen in the Market. Okay, so if you go through that book, you will understand the psychology and how you should work like a yogi in the market. Totally detached like a yogi. If you work, markets will be with us. As you asked, like these market risk, operational risk related stuff in the market, we can't avoid it because it is not happening only to you or me. It is happening en masse. It is a systematic risk. If it is a systematic risk, then we have to take it that way with the right stride. We can't. But if it is done intentionally, then of course we have this arbitration mechanism which we can escalate any wrong happening through the intermediary channel. We can always escalate it to the stock exchange. We have arbitration department in the exchange. First we have to meet the broker. If you're not satisfied, then you can go to the arbitration department of the exchange. There is an entire arbitration process. Even again, if you're not happy with that, then it will be put into a bench of arbitrators, and that even if you are not happy with that board, then only you can go to the consumer court and you can look for this thing. So, but before that itself, I think things will be sorted out. And exchange also has exchange guarantee. There is a lot of guarantee funds and other things, to take care of aggrieved customers in case if it is a genuine case. We can ask for it. But if it is a systematic failure across the industry or across this thing, unintentional because of operational risk, I think it will be slightly difficult. We have to just take it like that.
Thank you for your information.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Adding to this question, regulating stock market is a continuous also the fraudulent activity.
Sir, I'm not able to hear you properly. Hello.
Hello. Is it audible, sir?
Now it is audible, sir. But I was not able to. Hello.
Hello. Is it audible, sir?
Yeah, it's audible. Yeah.
I just want to add to the David sir's question.
Yes, I was not able to listen to that. Voice was feeble. Yes, sir. Yeah.
This particular, he was very keen on how to avoid scams. All fraudulent activity is a continuous process. I believe our SEBI is taking enough steps in regulating all those fraudulent activity. soon we will be in reaching the position of zero fraudulent activity state, I expect. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
that will be sooner that will happen.
Yeah. Because all the trades has to be in our control. So problem happens only when the things are going away from our control. So we have contract notes coming in, we have every data that is coming in. So if you are not able to track it on a daily basis, then we may be deceived by somebody. So if you are able to arrest it on the day one, that's why you have this MTM and all coming in on a daily basis. If you can arrest it in a day, then I think it can be managed.
So any more questions? One more question, last question.
Yes, sir.
Sir, Professor Ganesan here. I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So you talked about info vending companies. Can you brief about how the investors can get accurate information to invest in a share provided by those info vending companies, sir?
Sir, there are big ones and there are small ones also. Like we have Bloomberg, Reuters at a very large scale. We have companies like Ticker Plant at a slightly smaller scale. So depending on the scale of operation that you're looking at, we can subscribe to them and we can take the data. And because see, if you look at a typical trading terminal, it will not have the entire bandwidth of doing detailed charting analysis and all, though some broking firms are giving. But if you have to do as I told you, a typical trading trade setup, then you should have your own something like a war room. You should have wherein you have data feed coming in and you will have this analysis coming in. If you look at typical dealers terminal, there will be some 4-5 terminals fit. One that will be talking about international market, other will be local market, one he will be putting chart, other he will be placing order. He will be seeing all the 4 one at the same time. So for that, if you are becoming serious, then we can approach these info vending companies because it comes with a cost. Again, whether it is going to be, there are some small time players also who give this, they take feed from the exchanges and they become authorized distributors of the data, and they disseminate to customers the data to customers depending on what is our requirement. If it is intraday, then we may have to have some delayed data. If you are running positional trades, then I think the EOD data that is available through the exchange platform itself, that is more than enough. We need not necessarily invest money in data, getting data from the market, paid data. But in case if you are very serious doing something like scalping or intraday fast trades, I think then that being the case, it is better to look for these info vending companies because they'll be giving the live market data, and you can put in softwares like AMI Broker, wherein the data feed will go into AMI, and that will give all these. You can automate the trade, or you can create some sort of a interlinkages between the trading terminal and AMI Broker. So once the data comes in, and the AMI Broker will generate the buy-sell signal, and based on the buy-sell signal, the trade will automatically get executed in your trading screen. So that level of automation is also, it is there for quite some time now. So that way your human intervention is reduced, and you'll be able to take better trading calls. So that is that you can explore depending on the type of trade that you are doing.
Thank you, sir. I got a very clear answer. Thank you.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions. I'll just answer that. Difference between futures and option. Futures is futures and options are both derivatives. Futures is like having a linear payout. It is like like a forward contract. Whereas if you are expecting that the prices will go up, you will buy that futures contract. If you're expecting the prices to come down, then you will go and sell the contract. It is like instead of buying and selling the shares or the commodity or the currency underlying, you will be just trading on the contract. So it is just giving the right for an obligation to buy and obligation to sell. So that futures contract is just a contract. Rather than buying the physical asset or physical thing, you are just trading on the contract. And the contract price and the physical price, spot price, will be going in tandem. So that is what we have seen in one of the slides. Hindustan Unilever spot price and Hindustan Unilever futures price, they were going in tandem. Option is nothing but something like your insurance premium, like a two-wheeler insurance we take. Something happens, we'll show the policy and we will get the claim. If nothing happens, we will forget about the premium paid and we will keep walking. Same way, it is like an protection. Say like the price is 100, you feel that it will go to 110, so you bought the futures contract. Suddenly, if it comes back to 90, you are losing 10 rupees. So futures will be paying you unlimited profit or unlimited loss. So to avoid that, you go for options contract wherein what you are saying is if it goes to 100, from 100 to 110, 120, then I will use this contract. On the contrary, if price is reversing in my favor, I will forget this contract like the two-wheeler insurance and I will go and buy in the open market at 90 rupees. So that is an options contract. So it is giving you the right to either do the buy transaction or the sell transaction. If the right is given for buying that particular asset, it is called a call. If it is giving the right to sell, that is called a put. So that is the difference between futures and options. Futures is you are obliged to go by the contract. Options means it is your wish whether to go by it or not. If what happens to the leftover F&O fund after expiry? When it is expiring, it will be getting settled at that particular day's closing rate. And if it is any MTM is there, that will be adjusted and money will come back to your trading account, which you can take payout and you can take it out. So when the contract is expiring, further after that particular minute of expiry, you have access to that particular contract. Automatically system will terminate the contract, your position. If you have bought, it will automatically sell. If you are on the sell, it will automatically buy and you'll be exiting. Any profit or loss will be paid and you'll be getting back your cash. Okay, the oscillators like RSI. So actually, it is like, technical indicators, it is now become an open secret. So not necessarily that, technical indicators has to be, when it comes to share trading, I think according to me, it should be a mix of both technical and fundamentals that we need to price action, technicals and fundamentals, then this open interest, put call parity. It should be a comprehensive approach rather than just saying, okay, RSI breached the 80 level, overbought RSI breached 20 level, coming down. So those, this is just used by everybody in the world. So that alone won't work. So apart from the indicators, I think we need to look for subsequent confirmatory things also. So how can I pick the stocks for intraday trading? That's what we have discussed in one slide in detail. It will talk about basically you should decide how much of profit you are looking at. You should look only for volatile stocks. There are stocks which move around 200, 300 rupees or 2 to 3% movement should be there. Then only those stocks only will be fit for intraday. Range bound stocks will be waste of time for all of us. So look for volatile stocks. Look for at the same time see anything bad happening in the industry. So you can either do a contrarian trade or you can do a safe trade. You should for intraday trade, I think you should use a 5-minute, 15-minute chart, and you can take confirmation from the technical part also. And I think you should do your intraday trade. And we have in that slide, some 30th slide or something, we have put some 7-8 points on basic points on how to pick stocks for the intraday trading. But basically, it is not advisable to start with intraday trading because we should have a little bit of good understanding about the market, about the particular thing. So a good brokers, it is very, very difficult to say who is a good broker. We have to decide. There is nobody called good or bad because time changes very fast. So we have to be go with the big ones, established ones. Like banks have their own subsidiaries. Likewise, I'm not supposed to patronize anybody, but everybody is good. Each is great in his own way. They should suit our personality. But only thing you need to see is whether the cost is okay with you and whether they are safe. Okay. Okay, I think we are running out of, already we reached the time.
We have reached the circuit time, sir.
We have reached the circuit time, 300% circuit hit.
We are happy to have you, sir. It's a wonderful sessions.
Thank you, sir.
I very low amount of people who left the session after after some time. So continuous presentations, participation from our attendees. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure, sir. My pleasure, sir.
Private call sometime later. We'll have we have one more time to our DC team, Mr. Rajan and other. Actually, they have given enough cooperation in executing this webinar, and we will have a soon going to have a close association with for trading simulation platform. We are into the process of that. And we'll have the next series of sessions. Especially, I find there are a lot of questions on derivatives. We'll have derivatives the next time.
Great, sir. That is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for your patient hearing. Sorry for delayed start and extended drag. Okay. Stay safe and wishing you all the best. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.